welcome to another episode of the President Infinity tutorial series. My name is Dreamer Locus, and I'll be leading you through how the editor works in President Infinity version 3.3.1. Just a note, this is not the new editor with the new UI and whatnot and the new engine. This is the President Infinity Classic editor that has all the bells and whistles that allow people to make all these fanciful custom scenarios that are going on about on the 270 soft site. Now, I'd like to thank my friends Kin and Friends and Supreme Incompetent Ruler from the 270 Soft Discord. I'd also like to thank Christian from the 270 Soft Discord for getting me the idea to make this video, and I will of course have links to their profiles and or YouTube videos in the description. First of all, let's start off with the basics. Now, this is the campaign editor, the Windows screen you can see here. Now you've got the campaign image, which can be changed. Of course, I'll be talking about the size later. I don't feel like opening up it. I believe the size is the campaign picture, of course, is a BMP. It needs to be 65 by 85 pixels. I'm gonna make sure you do this in BMP, aka bitmap. Now, the blurbs don't really matter. The blurb for the general and blurb for the primary only basically give you a scope of what the election is. The start dates, of course, are very simple. You have a start date you start on, and that's that. Now people have multiple start dates for different campaign scenarios. Like the 2020 president has like 13 different start dates, ranging from early in the primary to like January of 2020, right before Iowa caucuses. Very different primaries, of course. Of course, the credits are important if you want to get credited for your work. Now, the constants and coefficients basically tells you how the game will be working behind the scenes. Now, polling, this basically tells you how much it costs to enable polling and how much polling costs per turn. In this case, it's $10,000. The money coefficient basically tells you how relative to the 2016 dollar, what the value of dollar money will be. The lower number, the lower the value will be. 100 is 2016, 104 is 2020, 94 is 2010, etc. 90 is 2006. This basically tells you how much money it costs to fundraise in the background based on how much CPs you get. Basically, how many extra CPs you have, campaign points, to allow you to fundraise per turn. 500 is pretty average. The year basically allows you to change the years from like 2016 to 2020, 2015 to 2019, all that good shit. Anyways, now this is the interviews. Basically, the interviews basically tell you how often basically the stands, how likely the candidate is to be supported or opposed on the show, the visibility, how often, whether or not they'll make the front page of the news, and the conscientiousness says like the likelihood of the news giving you a 1, 2, or 3 momentum spin for the article you get from it. Simple. You can change your currency. Doesn't really matter. These are basically the default. You only want to enable this one right here if you're doing a Senate scenario and you've got like a normal and special election up, where you want to make sure that, or like House scenarios where you've got like a whole bunch of seats in the same map region. Very simple. You can also edit this. You can change the leader name, the position, the institution, etc. It's all very changeable and whatnot. Relations between party leaders basically tells you what the likelihood of whether or not a party or a candidate will specifically make its platform be against a specific candidate. Look at the platform is running the campaign tutorial. We'll start out with the first tab, leaders. Leaders basically give you which people are running for these positions. Now, you got to make sure that these pictures here have to be bitmap or .bmp, and this one has to be 75 by 87 pixels, and this one has to be 32 by 32. It will tell you if the size is too wrong, and it will not allow you to put your images in these in the game. The idea is basically a unique identifier. All IDs have to be unique. If you copy a person, it'll give you John Bozeman _2 or 2 _2. If you copy that one, it'll be _2 _2. That kind of thing. Title: Senator, Representative, Mr., first name, last name. Personal influence points basically allow people to get personal influence points or non-regenerative points that are used to grab endorsers. More endorsers in a minute when we actually get to the endorsers tab. The blur doesn't even matter. The blur, basically describes what's going on. The sex basically gives you whether or not you want to him or her pronouns. Like home is where the candidate's location starts out at. The funds and the primaries and ones in general. You can also set this up so you can have $4.8 million at the general election. You can also set it up where you have like $0 if it's starting at a different start date. Really, it's not that hard. Now attributes is what determines how candidates do. You've got your personal attributes, which basically give you how well the candidate is on issues, familiarity, how integral they are, whether or not they have good leadership. Leadership, experience, integrity are all important for the positions that are covered by the game. Both of those three are very, very high prominence. Now, campaign attributes are different. Campaign attributes tell you how well the campaign is. A high command means more base CP per turn. High ads means more likely to have good ads, more likely to have more power. Spin basically tells you how well you spend. Fundraising means how much you'll get if you fundraise. Researching, polling, basically, the higher the number of these are, the better. Except for corruption. You want corruption to be as low as possible. High corruption means more likely to be scandalized, or more likely to have ads backfire, more likely to get negative momentum. Now, star basically tells you whether or not the candidate is on or off, whether or not they're undecided, seeking, or official. You want to make sure that your default candidates are always on and official. Your only reason you want an on undecided candidate is if you're starting in the primaries and you want them to join in if it's a good look or not. But of course, during the primary, candidates will join in if their ambition is high. Goals basically determine whether or not how much the percentage they get, how much the electoral seats or these seats of the electoral college they want to get. For most people, for president it'd be 50 and 5 to 70. This would be 50 and 70 because it's a Senate election. There are no seats. Basically, a display of seats. As you increase this number, these seats get closer to the center. You have one on the left, one on the right. You want to make sure that you're. This really doesn't matter per se, but you want to make sure right party's on the right and the left party's on the left. Now, the candidate issues are not the same as the party issues. The candidate issues, the leader issues are not the same as the party issues. Now, a note here, a difference between party issues and party issues, region issues, and leader issues will contribute to how well a candidate does. Not just attributes, but also how well the candidate appeals to specific groups in each county or whatever have you. How well PACs do during the primaries in the general election. This is the PAC you want to go with. You can name it whatever you want. You can name whatever type you want. You've got vice leaders. So basically, if we turn on VEEPs, then Michelle Bachmann would be the only person Comcom would choose as a VP. If the player's not playing him. You can also add or remove all of these people here, and you can also make sure that you always have to have one person as a VP. Period. Surrogates basically tell you how, basically give you the option to get people to campaign for you. And of course, it's basically the same as the normal edit stats, except they don't have specific campaign attributes, except for barnstorming, spend power, and fundraising power. Basically, this tells you how long these people will last until you have to reinvest in the surrogate. Surrogates cost 5 CPs or campaign points, one per day for 5 days. Of course, they're really good. And surrogates can also cost pips, which you gotta make sure you don't want to do that because pips are non-regenerated. They are finite. Oh, and one last thing, the preset. This basically gives you the ability to change the colors from each person. Each person can have a unique color, which makes identification during the debates in the primaries and during debates in the general pretty easy to read. You always want to make sure you have distinct colors if possible. Make sure you have people with the same color not on at the same time. Parties. You've got, for party logos, you got to make sure your party logo it doesn't have to be on this background, but it does have to be 101 by 101 pics, period. Now, of course, you got your name down, your abbreviation. This will show up when you're looking at the county view, but I'll get into that during the campaign overview. Now, party issues are not the same as leader issues. Party issues basically tell you how the party looks on specific issues, whether or not they're right or left or center, and of course, the party center and the region center and the leader center all influence the favorability of the candidate at large. How much funds the party will give the player, how much funds the party will use ads on the opponent for the player, backgrounds on how much money the party will give to the player if they accept this, and of course, if you have backgrounds on, you might want to make your, of course, backgrounds are a finite amount of money. So if you accept a background, you'll have a high score, but you won't be able to fundraise at all during the campaign. Regions, very simple. Now, the first thing you'll see is the map, which means you can also import a map. Now, this is the at-large region. This is the state. If this is the state, if you're doing with a county map, this is the nation. If you're doing with a state map, if this is a city. If you're doing with precinct, you know how that works. Now, the grayed out areas basically are not changeable. These two are changeable. These are only changeable if you hit the county view. Like these numbers will give you candidates with these numbers. These are how many seats per region. Basically per region. In the 2020 election, these were the electoral college votes. In this case, there'll be 1 seat per county. Of course, you can turn off popular vote, and it'd be a majority county win, and not popular vote. But Senate elections have popular vote enabled. If you have parties that want to see a ranked choice ballot, you can enable this. Very simple. This is the time the election starts on the date above. This is the time the final results are in, and this is the time, if enabled, when the election results return every X minutes, or you can just have it enabled where it's just once per final results. The map, basically, Arkansas County is here. You got to make sure your field positions are only in one area. If you fill in this county here, both the results for this county will show up here, despite this having its own regions. You got to make sure that unless the county is across a body of water or what have you, that you always make sure you have a singular fill for each county. Now, of course, it'll show the abbreviation said here. And the population would be, normally I would have the population would be different than the eligible voters, but since I'm just using data from 2010, it's the same, so it doesn't really matter. Now, the parties screen is really important. The party screen determines how the initial setup works. A narrow margin, say 52-48 in Arkansas County, is going to play out differently than a 50-46 Ashley County or a 70-30 Baxter County. This is much safer in terms of party percent than Ashley or Arkansas counties. Of course, these are all changeable here. Now, percentage details basically tell you how, basically give you an overview of how well the percentages are broken down. So, for 52% of the people in Arkansas County, 60% of those people are committed voters. They won't change. In order to win elections, you have to convert the undecideds and the leaning voters of your opponent to yourself. Now, in terms of this down here, this is the leader. Now, this basically gives you a bonus if you turn these on. This will give you a bonus in a specific county as a favorability boost. So you're more likely to enable these. These are mostly considered home state boosts. For most people, these will be the home state bonuses. Now, primaries are different. Now, primaries basically allow you to set up the percentages for each leader. So this Tom Hans would be 23%, which basically means you get 100% of the vote. But there'd be a lot more undecided because only 20% of the vote in this percentage here is committed. 60% is lean and 20% is undecided. So it's basically very similar. It just sets all this to every county for this leader. Issues basically give you how the county looks towards issues. This county is leaning center left, except in COVID-19. Of course, you can ask the county to inherit the national issue center. and you can also inherit the profile, and the profile for each profile for general and primary determines how whether or not it's high or low, and whether or not the issue is important. It's always important to remember to set your platform to the issues that matter most to the voters. Issues doesn't really matter. Basically allows you to add new issues, change issue descriptions, change. This requires a 32 by 32 BMP file for the issue image, because you'll need those. Debates basically allow you to set debates up. The general debates only for the general election, and each of the parties have their own debates. You also want to make sure that your debates occur during the primary period and not after the convention is called. Endorsers basically allow you to set up endorsers. Basically, you can send an endorser for each region, and plus the region at large. So in this case, now the NRA would give you a 1 momentum boost and 100% and an increase to foot social level across the entire state of Arkansas. Basically, just tells you here that the issue that the NRA is on is gun control, and it only endorses, and it will genuinely endorse for the right position, to the right position on gun control. So I think starting scores basically allows you to set up which people are likely to be endorsed by which candidates. Republicans are more likely to be endorsed by the NRA than Democrats, as you can see here. Of course, you can also set up a score for each leader, not just the party at large. Now, basically, this tells you here. Now, PIP basically tells you that every time you add a PIP, it only increases the score by 1. Most people have 5, so each people toward 5 influence points against the endorser. So, if you start from 0 and when you get to 100, you need 50 pips for a PIP effect of 5, 100 pips for a PIP effect of 1, etc. Events allow you to basically determine how things play out during the campaign process, and they allow you to set up momentum and give money and momentum for leaders, for parties, for easy positions, etc. Basically this here gives you a reset on the integrity issue when you make a speech on it. You could of course add more of these outcomes to this one issue here, or you can make a requirement that event has occurred, event not occurred. That's how that would work. Vapes basically allow you to make vapes. Basically, the campaign attributes don't matter by vapes. Only the personal attributes. This is the home of state or county. The image should be 75 by 75 by 87, 32 by 32. The IDs will be unique, and you can also make these VPs into leaders if you have a VP you want to make into a leader for a what if scenario. One last thing. The color presets. The color presets, or if I didn't cover this early, you can skip this. If I did cover this, you can skip this. If I didn't, I'm going to cover this now. Color presets basically determine